let's study about some best practices of Dockerfile. Basically do's and don'ts or some best practices to be followed when you are writing Dockerfile, because Dockerfile when you are writing, right, along with your code, right, then you are using a Dockerfile which is helping you to convert this to the image. So, we are writing lot of instructions inside Dockerfile. So, maybe there are some instructions, will that be known to others or not, right. So, we have to follow some certain guidelines when you are working with the Docker files, right. So, the first one is using smaller size official images. Okay, what is this? If you remember, when I said from, right, Ubuntu and colon 22.04, right, we are always using, base images. Okay. Docker Hub is a registry which contains lot of base images. So, always when you are creating an image, you have to refer to a base image. In my example previously, I have used Ubuntu, this version. So, this version of the Ubuntu has a default image, use that. Okay. So, here what I am trying to say, the first one, use smaller size official images, because if you are referring to some base image which is of higher size, it will take more time for you to convert that into image. Using larger size images can lead to longer building time for the containers. Therefore, it is advised to utilize learner OS releases with smaller images that just contain the essential system tools and libraries to reduce the attack surface, right. So, basically the size of the image, the default image or the base image which you are using should be of smaller size. Next, using the right privileged user. Okay. Here again we are using the root directory by default. The root user will be used by default. Okay. In Linux you are aware of the root directory, the root user, the default user, right. So, if the user isn't specified in the Docker file, it poses a security concern. You see here what I have done here in this command, I have written here docker build -test dot, and I executed all these commands. I executed this thing, my Docker file, my hello.py, everything is in default user. Basically, it is telling you follow user based access control, where you create users and do execution in separate users, let others do not have access to these files, right. So, using instead of using root user, you may create an user and give privilege to that user. Okay. Simply add the user directive to the Docker file. In Docker file, we can add a user directive, specify who is the user or which user has the privilege. By this, we can add more security, right. Next, using multi-stage builds. Okay. So, we are talking about multi-container, right. So, this enables us to have reproducible builds inside the container. The basic idea is to separate the build stage from the runtime stage. Okay. So, when you are doing a build, you do it in multiple layers, multiple levels, instead of doing it in a single thing. Then decoupling applications, each container should do only one thing. It means when you are having a code with you, you are converting an entity image, and this image you are putting in a container. This container should contain only one image, one container, one image. That way it is more secure, and there is lot of decoupling, there is no dependency. That is better. It is simpler to scale horizontally and reuse containers when the applications are decoupled. It makes us very easy. When you have independent services, when you have one container, one image concept, if there is some load in that particular application, I can scale it easily. So, we have to use one container, one image concept, right. So, again decoupling application we have seen, right. Then scanning for security vulnerabilities. Using the Docker scan command, we can scan our images for security vulnerabilities. So, frequently using Docker scan command, right. Then reducing number of layers. Okay. So, Docker image has lot of layers one after the other. One time you create image, then you added some more feature, then you added some more feature. So, reduce this number of layers inside an image. The order of instructions in a Docker file plays a very important role. Grouping several commands together will decrease the number of levels. Run, copy, add, right, will add a new container layer. Okay, because that is why you try to group as many commands as possible into single command. Write one single command, do not give multiple commands. That is also one more best practice when you are creating or working with Dockerfile. Okay. Then the next one is the Docker updating images frequently, right. It is a general security practice to use most recent security updates, because new security flaws are continually being found. So, what it is saying is, let us say you had a code with you, you create an image and you put in registry. Since so many days it is the same image you are using, it is a better practice. It is just suggesting, it is telling us that better create images, new images always. Means once you create an image, let us say on 1st April 2026, you create an image. After 1 year, you are using the same image. It is advised to recreate the image once again. We do not know what is the attack happening in this image, right. So, for that reason, it is better that if you keep creating the images once again. Some images not being changed for so many years, then you try to create it once again, nothing wrong in doing that, right. Then avoid unnecessary packages. Refrain from installing unnecessary packages just because they might seem good to have. When you are installing some packages, you try to avoid whatever is required, only those you create. Okay. So, in that case, image will be lightweight and it will be very easy, otherwise it will increase the complexity of the image. Okay. And finally, do not expose secrets, do not add credentials or secrets in the Docker file. Okay. Add it in Docker ignore file for sensitive information. Okay. So, if you are required to give some credentials, then you try to avoid giving those credentials. Instead, you may include that in the .docker ignore file, right. So, these are few important best practices which you have to follow when you are working with Dockerfile, because see, whatever you are writing here, what all instructions you are writing in this Dockerfile, this will be executed and it will happen in every environment or every machine. So, it should be of lightweight, we should not have unnecessary packages installed, right. We should not mention any credentials, so that no security problems are not there, right. That is what these best practices suggest to us, Dockerfile best practices.